Got a question from Sweden. So this is going out to Peter and my other Swedish friends. What's up? So the question is about power training for children. Now, let me just start with saying I will give my opinion, but I'm in no means an expert in this area. I am a power and explosivity expert for adults. I've worked with elite athletes and I've worked with children, but I've never worked with children that are elite athletes. And there are some out there, right? Your gymnastics career ends when you're like 16 or something, right? Anyway, so it's my opinion and take it for that. Nothing more, nothing less. More than asking what power exercises should children be doing, I think the question really is, should children be doing power exercises? And, well, the answer, as with everything, the answer is, well, it depends, but for the most part, probably not. And I know that's not the answer anyone's looking for, but in my opinion, when training children, I think priority number one is injury prevention. The reason I say that injury prevention is priority number one when training children, I believe that injury can affect the developmental phases or the development of the child or the child athlete. I think the potential for long-term dysfunction is greater in children. I think injury in itself, the risk associated with injury is greater than with fully developed adult athletes. That is influencing my perspective and my recommendations. So, along the lines of injury prevention is skill training. The more skilled the individual is, the less likely they are to get injured. Usually, injuries happen right at the brink of fatigue and exhaustion, but very often, if the individual's skills were better and their technique were cleaner, the injury would not have occurred. Under the umbrella of injury prevention is proper skill training. And with any athlete, but especially child athletes, having high quality, well-educated coaches that you can trust is high stakes. So coaches are really, really important. Do your background check, make sure that, and Peter, not you specifically, because I know that the people you're working with are elite level, but for everyone else that's dropping in on our conversation here, do your background check, do your research. Make sure your coaches are top quality. Speed and power are like this, and really speed is an element of power, and to increase the speed of any athlete, you want to increase the ability to generate power. So speed and power training becomes a game of semantics at the higher levels or the more precise levels of education and training. So increasing an athlete's speed or increasing an athlete's power is pretty much the same thing, although it depends on perspective. But in any athletic endeavor, speed is directly correlated to skill. And that makes sense. The better you get at doing something, the faster you can perform it. So if the objective is to increase the speed of an athlete, before looking at auxiliary strength training or explosivity training or power training, again, look at skill training. So now we've got skill training and skill training. So injury prevention, skill training, increased speed, output, increased performance, skill training. With children, skill, and skill are paramount, are the most important aspects of training. Peter, I know you have that specifically covered, but again, general audience watching, take that for what it's worth. Now, once we've established you've got the right skill training program and the right coach is guiding the skill training, then you start going, okay, now look at the specific individual or child. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're dealing with a child athlete or an adult athlete or a casual weekend warrior. You look at everybody as case-specific, individual-specific assessment, and you say, is this person's individual structure, individual competency ready for more? And how is the best, safest, highest benefit, lowest risk way of investing in more, whatever more may be? And very often that more is auxiliary strength training. However, auxiliary strength training, unless it is a strength sport, so specifically Olympic lifting, powerlifting, CrossFit, strength stuff, unless it's specifically that, then any athletic endeavor, the strength training is auxiliary strength training and should only be performed to improve the performance of the specific athletic endeavor and prevent injury. In most athletic endeavors, auxiliary strength training is done specifically and almost primarily or exclusively for injury prevention. In sports like downhill skiing or ski jumping or sports that you're kind of looking at going, do you even need power training or do you need that? They will undergo auxiliary strength training specifically to increase the hardiness or the robustness, the mass, the girth, the hardiness of the athlete, because generally speaking, a hardier structure is more resistant to damage. So with that perspective in mind, the type of training that a lot of non-strength sports do is actually hypertrophy and strength training. So bodybuilding type weightlifting is done for injury prevention. The other benefit is that it's actually quite low risk. If done properly, and what I mean by that is if you respect anatomical limitations, if you're not using Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, if you're not doing exercises that violate anatomical limitations, if the exercise itself is not causing damage, exercises like upright rows or pullovers or behind the neck anything, all of which harm structural integrity of the joints. So if you are respecting anatomical limitations and using good technique, proper form, bodybuilding or hypertrophy weight training is actually very, very, very low risk. Therefore, is very useful in an injury prevention, prehab and or rehab environment. So if we stick with the vein of thought that bodybuilding done properly is actually injury prevention, it should therefore be included in almost everybody's, or maybe everybody's, auxiliary strength training program. So we have skill, injury prevention, and bodybuilding. So not a whole lot about power training yet there, Rage. I know, sorry. Most children grow rapidly. If I take an athlete, an adult post-development athlete, somebody who is post-pubescent, and start them on a strength training program, results happen in a few weeks. Noticeable results happen in a few months. Well, with children without any strength training program, just because of growth, changes happen daily and non-linearly. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is like sometimes the bones grow faster than the muscles, or the muscles grow faster than the bones, and then everything is out of whack. So understanding that perspective, understanding that the child is going to grow stronger and grow in ways that exercise could never influence. Question is, will exercise or strength training specifically benefit, or will it harm? Because now if bones are growing at different lengths, that means the mechanics of the joints are growing at different rates and different lengths. So the structure that you're working with today may be completely different in a month. I mean, completely different, to the point where it's like, oh, this person shouldn't even be squatting right now because their femurs have grown faster than their tibia, and it's thrown the whole thing out of... And again, it's an individual, case-by-case, specific examination, but that's one more huge risk that you have to take into consideration. Should I even be putting extra strain, extra force on this structure that is changing daily? And the answer is, well, I don't know, because I don't know what structure we're talking about. And professionals, hopefully, the professionals that are experts in working with children, will be able to analyze this particular awkward risk. Most of the time, all the time, I'm working with a combat athlete who's getting ready for a fight, and I have this much time, it's never enough time, to come up with a program that doesn't injure them, but makes them bigger, stronger, faster, and not always bigger, because sometimes they have to make their weight, but stronger and faster. I train in cycles. I visualize it as a pyramid because I look at the frequency and duration of the exercises. The further away I am from the deadline, the more frequently we do weight training. Usually the way it works is the fighter just fought. So the fighter just fought and we're starting over. So they fought, they take a little time off, and then they start again. And so we want kind of this like rehab, recovery, low risk phase. And the other reason I keep hypertrophy so far, well, as far away from the upcoming event, is because hypertrophy training can possibly make you slower if it's all you do and you don't mitigate it appropriately. So I visualize it as a pyramid. And the first phase that we go through for several weeks, and again, because we are never actually given enough time to prepare for the event, it's only weeks, and in a perfect world I have months, but I don't. The first phase is a hypertrophy phase, and hypertrophy simply just, stuff gets bigger. So it's a strength and bulking phase, and it's also a strength endurance phase. It's the lowest risk, and benefit is easy. Strength gains are easy to achieve. The risk or the downside of hypertrophy training is that it can slow your skill down. It can slow your technique down. That's another reason we do hypertrophy training earlier, further away from the fight. So then after hypertrophy training, then are the different aspects of strength training, and what phases we do all depends on how much time we have. But as the intensity increases, power and speed as they increase, volume must decrease. Again, because injury prevention is paramount, that is very strictly adhered to by me, however, not so much in the industry. And that's a huge mistake that is being made in the industry. And that's why so many athletes and fighters especially can't fight or meet their obligations because they get injured. Sorry about that little rant. After hypertrophy is what I call just pure strength, then what I call rapid strength or brief maximal tension. So hypertrophy training, then strength training, then above that is rapid strength production training, and then we start getting into speed and power training, and that's where the plyometrics and the complex training start coming in. Now, most people aren't doing plyometrics properly. Even international, national coaches aren't doing plyometrics properly. We'll get to that. But with the pure strength training, the maximal lifting, is that appropriate for children? Depends on the child. And it also depends on the intensities but it might not be appropriate for children. And then plyometrics, the bounding and rebounding and true plyometrics, shock training from, Verkhoshansky, no. You read Verkhoshansky's literature, albeit it was translated from Russian, so there might be some misinterpretation, but Verkhoshansky would not let his athletes even start plyometrics until they could squat twice their body weight. So, not that that is like hard and fast rule, but as a guideline, that should indicate that if the higher intensity, higher amplitude plyometrics should probably be avoided by people whose skeletal structure is not fully developed and their nervous system is not fully developed, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if we can look at the cyclic phases, the pyramid thing that I talked about, the phases of training that we take an athlete through, and then take a step back and look at the athlete their entire career, and look at childhood as an early phase in their development along their athletic journey or their athletic lifetime, then we should be doing higher benefit, lower risk, auxiliary strength training, and the whole childhood phase, maybe the best option is actually strength, endurance, and hypertrophy training. Does that necessarily mean lifting weights and weight training? Well, not necessarily, because for a lot of children, just body weight exercises are within the intensity levels or the rep ranges of what weight training would be. And then again, given the fact that children are changing daily, there's a lot of safer things that they could be doing. I know I've talked a lot and I haven't come very far. Basically, I've said injury prevention, skill, 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 and hypertrophy training in the way of maybe some weightlifting and calisthenics. Now, that's kind of a big general guideline. And again, most children should not be engaging in maximal lifting, high intensity shock style plyometrics, but let's just say that we are dealing with outliers or high level elite athletes that are also children. And the only thing that I can think of that would fit that is gymnastics. And inherent in the movements anyway are plyometrics. And in gymnastics training, most of the auxiliary strength training is done so that the structure can simply survive the demands of the sport. Anyway, brother, I hope you find this useful, and I'll see you all soon.
Guys, listen, we are making the world a better place. We're saving lives. Subscribe to my YouTube page. And if you're not on YouTube, if you're coming across this through another venue, Facebook, whatever, log in to YouTube and subscribe. Thank you.